Hello, everybody. This is Nick Rudolph. I'm the Baltimore Regional Director with Maryland Capital Enterprises, and today we are going to be talking about business plans and cash flow projections, specifically how to develop them so that you can get yourself a small business loan and access some capital. Before we get started on that, a little bit about who we are. Maryland Capital Enterprises, we started back in 1998 doing small $500 loans to businesses on the Lower Eastern Shore. We developed a relationship with the SBA and started becoming an intermediary lender with them and started serving the entire Eastern Shore. In 2012, crossed the bridge to the Western Shore. So now we're able to serve not only the Eastern Shore, but Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel, Harford, and Cecil counties. And when we talk about the different services we have, we do offer loans as an SBA lender, but we also offer what we call technical assistance. And that is free one-on-one counseling, webinars just like this one, in-person classroom sessions to help people on their journey as they grow their business. It's also good to know that we are a women's business center. And what that means is that we have enhanced services for women-owned businesses across the state. So what most folks do like to talk to us about, though, is the money. And I understand that. So as an SBA lender, it doesn't mean that we're lending SBA funds. In fact, what it means is um, that they will back our loans for us. So say that we make a loan and you're unable to pay it back, they will give us back a certain percentage, which allows us to take on loans that sometimes a bank wouldn't be able to take on. We get money from different uh, government departments like the U.S. Department of Treasury, USDA. We get it from state agencies. We also get money from banks and from private foundations. We get all that money and we make sure that we can get it out to you at the lowest interest rate and the longest term so that you have the lowest monthly payments possible. But again, we also offer that free training whether or not you apply for a loan. So we're going to get started here. We only have a few people on, so feel free to just unmute yourself if you have any questions. But we're going to start talking about business plans. Then we're going to move on to cash flows, and then we're going to talk about how you can use those to access some money. So, the first thing you want to do is write that business plan. And why do you want to do that? Well, really, if you're a business owner, you need a business plan, and there are a couple of different reasons for that. First is it's the blueprint as you start your business. So you want to think about your business as if it is a building. When you go down to downtown Baltimore, you might see a empty lot with a fence around it, and then a beautiful picture of a skyscraper that's going to be going up. And sometimes for 18 months, you don't really see much going on there. And then all of a sudden, the construction starts, and 6 months later, it's open, it's full, it's bustling. Well, those 18 months, what they were doing is all of the studies, all of the groundwork, all the stuff they needed to do to build the foundation. So they spent a lot of time in prep so that when it became time to hit the ground, they were able to hit the ground running and get that building up quickly. And so that it'll stay there for a long time. Same thing with your small business. The more time you take on the ground floor, the easier it will be to grow your business and the more successful you will be. Also, it's just really important if you want to get a loan or those rare grants, you're going to need a business plan. We're going to want to see those, and we're going to want to make sure that it's thorough enough that we understand that you understand how to run your business. So it is that blueprint for your business, but you want to think about it as something that will be read by a lot of different audiences. And what that means is think about it like a resume. So you may have a lot of different skill sets, and depending on the job that you are going to apply for, you might move some to the top, maybe some a little bit lower, because the audience that's going to be reading it is going to care about different things. Same thing with your business plan. If you're applying for a grant, you're probably going to want to focus on how much of a community asset you are, how, what a great job you're doing, hiring local folks, hiring returning citizens, why you're an asset to your local community and your local economy. If you're writing to get a loan from a bank, they like all that stuff, but the thing that they're most concerned about is will you be able to pay back that loan? So you want to focus more on that stuff while still mentioning all of the good community stuff that you are doing. So As a decision-making agency, I am not a decision maker myself. I've seen a few things that what folks are looking for in a business plan when they're deciding whether or not to offer capital to a small business. So the first is your passion. They want to see that you're going to be able to do the hard work, going to be able to roll with the punches because sometimes everything doesn't go great, and you're going to be able to strive and drive and get that business going, and then have that drive continue as you're sustaining the business and getting to the point where you're in growth. We're going to want to see your expertise. What that means is, do you have experience in the field? Or you do want to open a salon after you've had a chair in somebody else's for a long time? Or do you just have education? You got out of school and you're looking to open up a consulting business. Or maybe you want to get into a whole new field and you've got a mentor who's going to help you as you grow your business. The other thing we want to think about is, based on your business type, are there certain certifications or trainings that you're either going to need or have recommended that you have in order to get the clients that you need? We're also going to want to see that you did your research. A lot, of course, on everything, but very specifically, we want to understand that you know your market. And that means that you understand how much room there is for your business in the market. You understand who your customers are going to be, and you have a plan to target those customers. We also want to know about contingency plans. A lot of small businesses are run by one or two people. What happens if you can't work for 6 months? How will your business continue to sustain itself? And then in bold and bigger letters, and ask. This is one thing that a lot of people forget to put in business plans. What do you expect from the reader? And when we talk about writing the business plan, we're going to talk about how to start it off so that you can be sure that that you get what you want out of it, or at least they know what you want out of it. And by the first way that you do that is by having a strong executive summary. So we are going to break our business plan down into four parts: the executive summary, the marketing, the operations, and the finances. The truth of the matter is, though, that you know how to tell your story better than we do. So you might put things in different orders, you might have different section headings, but as long as you're getting all of this information into the business plan, you're probably going to be good to go. The one thing you really want to start off your business plan with is that sort of statement of the ask and letting them know exactly who you are. So we're going to be doing some a cash flow later for a fake business I created called Nick's Dill Pickles. So if I was running a business plan, it would start off with: Nick's Dill Pickles is a wholesale pickling operation run out of Baltimore, Maryland by Nick Rudolph. We are seeking a loan of $15,000 to purchase new pickling equipment so that we can do enough bulk orders to get into restaurants. So if that's your first paragraph, they know where I am, who I am, what my business is, what it's called, and what I expect out of them. I want them to lend me $15,000 so that I can buy more equipment. After your introductory paragraph, this is where you want to tell the story. What drew you to this business? Did I open this business because I really like pickles? Or am I interested in the chemistry of it? Or did I just see an opportunity to make some money? All of those are good reasons. But you want to show that you have a passion for doing this, that there's a reason why you're doing it. Then you want to have a brief description of your business. So I'll mention that, we're a brand new pickling operation. We're looking for the equipment because we want to do wholesales, but we're also going to be in farmers markets and have an online store. Then you want to have a detailed ask. This is where you break down what equipment you're going to purchase, if you're going to spend any of it on marketing or on just working capital, so that you've got a bit of a buffer. This is not going to be your longest section. In fact, it's probably going to be your shortest section, but it's often easiest to write this last because you'll be able to draw from everything else you wrote. But if you're more comfortable checking things off a list, going one, two, three, four, go ahead and write that executive summary first. The next is your marketing plan. This will likely be the longest part of your business plan because it's more than just how you're going to advertise your business. This is where you're going to describe your industry. You're going to show that market research by pulling some quotes out of whatever you found to show that there is room in the market for you, either globally or locally or a combination of both. You also want to talk about who your primary customer is. Even if you can serve anybody, what's the target demographic that if they can come to your store and take advantage of your services, they'll keep you afloat. So if you've got a salon in downtown Baltimore, you might be able to serve everybody, but based on where you are, you might say, look, our primary customer is a 35 to 65-year-old African American woman who makes more than $75,000 a year. And if we can get that demographic in, we're going to be okay. And that's what we want to see. We also want to understand your competition. So, who are they? What are they doing well? And how are you going to compete in the market with them? You also want to think about, local, regional, national, and international. We had a person who opened up a comic book store. Two of their competitors were local comic book stores, and one was Amazon.com to show that they understood that people go to the stores for the service. They know they can get the items anywhere, but the comic book store employees are going to get them the products they want. You also want to talk about your pricing. Are you going to be, a high end, middle of the road, or a value proposition? Then you want to talk about how you're going to get the word out. Are you doing traditional advertising or social media, which is becoming more traditional every day? Or do you have like a B2B business where your advertising is going to conferences, going to networking events, getting in front of the people that you are going to be selling your service or products to? All of that is advertising, and sometimes it's a combination of both. Then we're going to move into the operations or the organization section. This will be another section that, even though it's the longest on the slides, will be not be very long, because what you're going to want to do is just basically describe your business. What's your legal structure? Where are you located? Address wise, but also specifically, are you home based? Are you a brick and mortar retail? Are you fully online? You then want to discuss your hours. So if you're brick and mortar, when are your doors open? If you're not, when are you there to talk to customers? When are you going to be handling complaints? When are you going to be taking sales? You then want to talk about your employees. Will you have them? And if you do, will they be full hired employees, or will they be 1099 contractors? And there's different reasons why you might want to do one or the other. You also want to talk about whether you're going to be running your business or you're going to be paying somebody to run your business for you. And then you want to think about growth. So you might start off with no or fewer employees, but have a plan to grow to a certain number within a certain number of years. The more detail you have there, the better. You also want to talk about your insurance. We're going to want to see that you've spoken with an insurance agent and you understand what insurance you need and how much that's going to cost. Sometimes general liability insurance is all you need. It's very cheap. But if you're dealing with food, you're dealing with kids or animals or medicine or transportation, those numbers can get high pretty quickly. Then you want to talk about growth. Do you want to just be a one-person shop for as long as you own the business, which is absolutely fine? Or do you want to grow so that your business gets bigger and you're hiring a lot of employees, or maybe even getting to the point where you're franchising your business? Same thing thinking about the exit. Is your plan, to run this until you retire and that's the end of the business? Or is it something you can sell or maybe pass on to family or friends? Like I said before, the contingency plan, what if you're out for 3 weeks or 3 months or 6 months? How will your business run? Have you trained somebody else up? And really, we're moving out of the COVID-19 phase, but it's really saying, if one of your employees or customers comes in with a communicable disease, how are you going to get the word out? That doesn't necessarily need to be more than a sentence or two. And then the last section is going to be your financial plan. And this will look different whether you're a startup or an expanding business. So no matter what, you're going to want to talk about your projections, what you're going to be doing in the next 24 months, what your break-even point is, how many sales or services do you need to do a month in order to pay all your bills. Your credit, especially if you have any credit issues, you want to discuss those and be forthright about those. But if you're a startup, you're going to want to break out exactly what you're going to be purchasing, which you'd want to do anyway. But you want to explain how that stuff is going to help you, make the money that you need to have. You also want to show, that you understand what other startup costs you have, your insurance, your advertising, the office equipment, the printers, the laptops, the paper, the staples, the ink, all of that kind of stuff. For an existing business, we're going to want to see existing financials. So profit and loss statements, balance sheets. If you've got existing debt, we're going to want to know about that. You definitely don't want to try to hide existing debt because we all talk to each other and we will find out. So that is the whole business plan portion of it. Before we go into the cash flows, I wanted to see if there are any questions about the business plan. Nope. Okay, we're going to move on to the cash flows. So in this section, we're going to talk a little bit about cash flows, and then we're going to create a sample cash flow spreadsheet. So what are they and why do we need them? What are they? They're going to show us how much money is coming in and how much is going out so we can see if we've got a profitable business. Because if we're pulling in $1 million a week and it's costing us $1.1 million a week to do the work, we do not have a successful business. These cash flows are going to make sure that we've got enough money coming in to cover all of our expenses and make a profit. So, good things to know before we get started. You can see the scary document on the side. It's a living document. It's going to change over the course of the life of the business. It's not only not going to be 100% accurate, but most of the cells aren't going to be correct. That's fine. What you really want to do is make sure that you're giving us a realistic expectation of what you're going to do. In fact, I say show a worst case scenario because if in a worst case scenario you're making a profit, if you do better, you're just going to do better. So we had a client once who made homemade wedding invitations. They said, "Look, we get $1,000 a wedding, 10,000 weddings a year in Maryland. That's $10 million. That's what we're going to make." Well, of course, that's never going to happen. A one-person shop can't do that. Not everybody gets invitations. So they said, show us a cash flow doing 5 or 10 a month. And then if you do more than that, then that's just extra money. And then, and that's what we did, and that's how we were able to get that person their loan. You also want to break down your income and your expenses as much as you possibly can. So it's going to help this document become more useful, especially as you're going through your business and you're making decisions on where to spend money. So I've got the separate income streams as dining, carry out, or catering, but in the restaurant industry, maybe you're looking at food versus alcohol. And you're saying, look, I think that our restaurant is going to do 70% food and 30% alcohol. And then 3 months later, you look at your books and you say, wow, we're doing 60% food and 40% alcohol. Let's do a little bit of investigating. Using your documents and using, your experience in the restaurant, you can make an educated decision on, is the issue that our food program is weak and needs to be strengthened? Or is the positive that our bar program is so strong, maybe that's what we should be investing in to make it even stronger? And that's what this cash flow document is going to do for you. It's going to let you know your expectations and it's going to help you make educated decisions as you need to make changes. You also want to make sure that if your business changes month to month, that's reflected in your cash flows. If you are a landscaper, your April is probably more busy than your December. And then also, we want to make sure that you're paying yourself. So, why do you need them? Well, you need them for loans. You need them because they're a planning tool. It's going to help you know what you need to get off the ground. It's going to let you know the difference between money coming in and what a profit is. It's just good government, and it's also going to let you know when you can start taking money out of the business, which is, of course, very important because we're all starting for-profit businesses here. So, what are you going to need? You're going to need a template, either ours or somebody else's. You need to know how much money you have in the bank specifically for the business. Oftentimes that is zero, and that's okay. You want to break down your income and your expenses. And if you don't have those exact numbers, estimates are okay. You want to understand what your payroll is going to be. You want to put your loan in as income and your loan payments as expenses. And percent markup means what are your inventory costs? How much, if you're selling a widget for $10, how much is it going to cost you for the actual widget? So now we are going to go ahead and get started. Um, Hold on one second. I got a question here. Where do we get the application documents for the cash flow? I can email that to anybody who sends me an email. It will be on the last screen, and I will also put it into the chat once we are done with that, once I'm done with the screen. So we're going to pull this off now. I am going to bring up the blank cash flows for Nick's Dill Pickles. This should be up now. While that's loading, I'm going to put my email in the chat. If you email me this, I also have a business plan template I can get for you as well. So this is our spreadsheet. Again, if you've got one you like better, you are more than welcome to use that. Um, what you first have is your cash on hand. That's going to change month to month. Your income coming in, and then your expenses going out. So what I like to say is that this is a completely non-existent business. None of these numbers are real. If you, for some reason, are going to have a pickling company, don't use these numbers because I have not done any research on that. One thing that's good to know is you can either count these as August through July, or just think of them of months 1 through 12, especially if you have a business that doesn't change month to month. So I've got my pickles that I'm going to sell at a farmer's market. I'm going to sell them wholesale, and I'm going to sell them online. I'm then going to, apply for that loan. I'm going to say it's $15,000. And then we're going to start, thinking about income. So if I get the money in the middle of August, I should be able to start selling in September. Or at least I think so. I don't know how pickles are made. But anyway, we're just going to assume that. September, I'm in Baltimore City. I'm going to go to the Waverly Market and I'm going to go to the one that's under 83. So that's both Friday and Saturday. I'm sorry, Saturday and Sunday. The Sunday market is much bigger than the Saturday market. Folks are not going to know who we are yet, but between the two and between all the weekends we have, I think we could do $1,500 in sales. I'm not going to have time to go out to restaurants yet. And my friends and family are going to have some big orders at the beginning from across the country. That's going to go down. October, everything's still open. People are starting to hear about us a little more. So we see a bit of a jump in sales. And, one chef went by and is going to, buy $250 worth of pickles a month for us. And then, our online sales are going to go down significantly after that first month. November, everything is still open, even though the weather is not as good. It's the holiday season. People are thinking about presents. Pickles can be presents. We're going to add another restaurant. We're going to keep the online sales the way they are. December, everything is still open. It's the holidays, so people might be stopping by specifically to get presents. So we're going to bring that up to a little more than normal. I will have found another restaurant, and then we'll have some holiday sales. January, we're down to one. Nobody has any money. It's not going to be the greatest month. So let's say $800, but it gives me more time to go out to talk to some restaurants. Maybe I'll add two in January, and then online sales are not going to be very big at all. February, same thing, maybe a little bit more because we're getting a little bit more popular. We'll add one restaurant there and we'll have the lower sales as well. March, the weather's starting to get a little bit nicer, but we still only have the one farmer's market. But we will have time to go and talk to some more restaurants. The word's getting out. We're selling a few more jars of pickles each month. April, again, still just the one, but it's starting to get beautiful out. So we're probably going to do pretty well on those Saturdays. We'll add another restaurant and then we'll keep those online sales where they're at. May, we've got both open. People are excited to see us again. There's going to be a huge jump. We are not going to be able to add another restaurant because I'm not going to have time to deal with that. But then in June, everything's up and running. We're making a little bit more. We're adding another restaurant. People have heard about us more, so they're buying more stuff online. And then in July, things are going great. People have really heard about us. We're in a bunch of restaurants and our online sales are doing okay. So, including a $15,000 loan, we've got $67,350 worth of income. But it costs money to sell pickles. So we're going to have to figure out how that's going to work. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to put in a inventory calculation. So I've got income on lines C's 13 through 15, but there's room for two more. So I'm going to count those as well in case I get new income streams. And then I'm just going to multiply that number by, and again, I'm making this up 30%. So it's a 30%, and this is just inventory. This is not any of the actual work. And then I will just copy that across. And you will see that now, I've got $600 in inventory. because I have $2,000 worth of pickles. So, wages. Now, in reality, I'd be doing this with friends and family to start, but we want to show how this works. So, the first couple of months, of course, I'm not going to have anybody, but then in December, I'm busy enough. I'm going to have one person help me out at the markets. January, February is going to be slow, but then it's going to pick back up. And then by May, I'm going to need more people. So, there are some sales costs. Again, these would probably be contractors, but I'm going to have them be employees here. So there's a 10% payroll cost. Outside services, I'm small. I don't need a dumpster. Office supplies, I can use my own printer and my own laptop, but I'm going to buy some paper, some ink, scissors, things like that. So it'll probably be a $250 expense. And then $25 a month after that just to keep everything up. Don't have any subscriptions, don't need storage. Advertising, I want to let people know about us to begin with. Maybe the first few months spend 150, then we'll bring it down to 100 for a few months, and then keep it at 75. Um, Gas and fuel, I'm local, it's Baltimore City, it's not going to be a whole lot. So I think we can do $100 a month there, just average that out. Even knowing that we're not open in that first August, it's just so that we're budgeting it. Accounting and legal. I'm not big enough where I'm going to need a lawyer and accountant, but I'm going to save $50 a month to put into a reserve for each of these because if I do need them, it's going to be nice to have some money, specifically for them. Rent. I am going to be doing the pickling in a commercial kitchen. I'm keeping my full-time job. This is just going to be part-time, sort of fun way to make some money. So, I'd say, an evening rental space there is about $500 a month. Um, and that's going to be utilities included. So we'll put that there. I'm going to add a line on my phone for $50 a month so that I can separate my personal phone from my business phone. Utilities I don't need to pay. Insurance, I am dealing with food, so I'm gonna say $200 a month. Um, and then, every business in the state is gonna have a $300 licensing fee, but then, there's food and there's some city licenses, I'm gonna assume 600. So then that's sort of our more variable expenses that may change month to month. We're at 32,000, 325 for the year. So then we've got our loan payment. Um, Let me just see what that is. I think I'm just going to average it out. We'll say $350 a month. Again, it would probably be close to that, but that's not an exact number. It's a brand new business. It doesn't have other debts, but I need to buy that equipment. So $10,000 of that loan is going to be for pickling equipment. The other 5,000 is for my working costs. I don't have any reserve or escrow, and I'm not going to pay myself in the first year. So at the end of year one, after paying the loan back for 11 months, making my money and having that big initial investment, I am going to have $21,175 in the bank. So what I'm going to do is see what that's going to do for year two. So the easiest way to do that is just to take all of year one, just copy it into year two, and then we're just going to change that to 27. So we've got that 21,175 to start with. That 7,500 is a good number to look for while everything's open. So we can go ahead and add that there. I think, keeping it at 10 restaurants is probably pretty good. Keeping it $400 a month on average is probably pretty good. We are going to see an increase over the 800 from the year before because people just know about us. The weather's not going to impact our sales on the restaurants. Keeping this at the $400 mark. 1,200, 2,000, 3,000, 6,000, 8,000, 8,000. And we'll make 8,000 our total going into July of 28. We don't need a loan anymore. We've got the inventory costs. We are going to have payroll expenses more throughout the year. And then, office supplies, we're not going to need to buy a new printer. Advertising, I think we'll be making enough that I can bring it up to $100 a month just so we can, possibly be making more money. Gas and fuel won't change, accounting and legal won't change, licensing won't change, rent won't change, and insurance won't change because we're not going to have any accidents. We're going to be paying off our loan every month. Now, while we don't have a cost for startup, I'm going to put a $5,000 escrow in the middle of the year so that if something breaks, we're budgeted for that. And now we've got $62,000 for the year. So I think at that point, I can pay myself $2,500 a month, take the family on a couple nice vacations, maybe pay off the car or something like that. And so now what we have here is a 2-year cash flow, which is what you would need to apply for a loan. And what it's showing is that after paying myself 30,000, putting $5,000 in the bank as a reserve, I still have a profit, and I still have $32,000 in the bank for the business. So if I have an opportunity to grow, I've got money to do that without having to take out a second loan. We will also be able to email you this completed cash flow along with the blank one. So we go ahead and save that. Before I pull this off the screen, are there any questions about the cash flow? Nope. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and bring back up the PowerPoint to finish off by talking about um, getting some money. So before we do that, a few things to remember. You want to bring that year-end number into that first money on hand, so it doesn't look like you're starting off with $0 at the beginning of year two when you really have got 21,175. You want to make sure that you're not taking out too much or too little of an owner's withdrawal. You want to pay yourself, get something out of the business, but you don't want it to be detrimental to the business. You want to make sure that you've got marketing, accountants, and legal fees in there so that if you need that money, you can spend it. You want to be careful of negative cash flows. If after 6 months you're still not making money, you might need to look at how your business is running. You want to include that loan as income and loan payments as expenses again. And then again, you want to make sure that your expectations are realistic. So now we're going to talk about funding. This is specifically about our loans, but this is true for a lot of nonprofits, as CDFIs. A CDFIs is a community development financial institution, which is what we are. So first you'll fill out an intake form online. That's what gets us started. Then we're going to have the online application. There's two different applications. We'll go through them based on the size of the loan. And then your personal information supplement that's filled out by anybody who owns 20% or more of the business. All of our loans are personally guaranteed. This is the document that does that and also allows us to pull credit. It's good to know that we only pull personal credit. We do not pull business credit, and we only do soft pulls. For the loans, we are going to need some documentation. So first is the business plans and 2 years of cash flow projections. Going back to the business plan, these documents do not need to be 20 or 30 or 100 pages. In fact, a lot of great business plans are in the 5 to 7 page range. You really want to get the information there. If you've got a complicated business, of course, it's going to be longer. But think about the fact that folks are going to be reading a lot of these. So you want to get that information out as succinctly as possible. Then we're going to want to see that you've applied for a loan somewhere else or asked for one. So if you've got a startup and you go to a bank and they say we don't do startups, that's enough for us. If you're an existing business, we're going to want to see your profit and loss statements, your quarterly balance sheet, and your business tax returns. No matter what, we're going to want to see 2 years of personal tax returns, and then 3 months of personal bank statements. In addition, we're going to want 3 months of business bank statements, assuming your business has been around. You can then also add anything you want to: reference letters, licenses, leases, estimates, invoices, or quotes, contracts, these are the resumes, these are the things that are going to help tell your story. If your website's already built out, send us that. Anything that's going to help let folks know more about what you do and show you in a good light. If there's newspaper articles, even better. Now, what are we looking for when we're looking for a loan? So first of all, the clearly established business idea, which means a thorough business plan, but also your ability to talk about your business with authority. We're going to want to see your experience in the field. So do you have experience? Do you have education? Or do you have a mentor? The strength of the cash flow. We also do require collateral for a lot of these loans. So, of course, wholly owned real estate is the best. We can be very flexible, however. We also want to look at credit. We do not have a minimum credit score, but we're looking for reasonable credit. In the last year or two, we're looking at things like missed payments, past due amounts, a little bit less at high credit usage. Then we want to know about the general economic conditions for the venture. So that means is this the right place and the right time to be doing this business? So that can be either global or local economy, or if you're opening up a Chinese restaurant on a block with 6 Chinese restaurants on it, how are you going to make that work? And that could be, it's Chinatown. This is where people go for Chinese food, or it could be that you're offering something a little bit different. And then your ability to repay the loan. Can you get back into the workforce if the business is not successful? So now we're going to talk about the loan specifically. So our small business loans for a business under 2 years old can go up to about 35,000. Older than that, it can go up to about 150,000. The age of the business doesn't start on the day it was registered. It starts when you started making income. So if you registered in 2017 but haven't done anything yet, you still have a new business. The terms are going to be based on the length of the loan. That $15,000 loan would probably be 3 years. 35,000 would probably be 6 years. Anything over 100 would be 10 years. Interest rates are technically at 6 to 12%. Most of these loans are going out at 8 or 9%. Collateral is acquired. If you're using real estate, we will need an appraisal that's a year old or newer, but don't get that until you're approved for the loan. As I said, anybody who owns 20% or more of the business is going to have to personally guarantee the loan. They will have their credit pooled. There is an application fee. It's $100 plus $25 per credit report. So a single owner business is $125. A 3-owner business is $175. There are closing costs, but those are taking out of your loan. Generally, a $50,000 loan will leave out at about $48,250. We'll take automatic payments from your business checking account on either the 1st or the 15th of the month, depending on what your loan documents say. And there are no penalties for prepayment. So if you want to pay off the loan or pay off a portion of the loan, you can just give us a call and we can take care of that. There will be no penalties there. On the other side of that, if you know you can't make a loan payment, you let us know at least a week ahead of time and we'll figure something out. We are going to visit you twice a year, either personally or virtually. We're going to want to see your books. We're going to want to talk to you about your business, and we're going to let you know about free resources that we have for you. Now, as far as is my business eligible and what can I use these loans for? Well, almost all small businesses in our service area, which again is the Eastern Shore, Cecil County, Harford County, Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, and Baltimore City. But unless it's in what's sort of known as traditional sin industries, adult bookstores, 100% tobacco, 100% alcohol, things like that. However, we are able to work with the cannabis industry. Also, if you are in real estate investment, we can't purchase homes or properties for you to flip. We can't pay for the folks to actually do the work on the homes, but we can build out your office, we can buy your truck, we can buy your big equipment and things like that. As far as other businesses, really any business related expense from rent to mortgage to salaries to build out to equipment to marketing, any of that is okay, unless you're a home-based business, in which case we cannot pay your rent, mortgage, or utilities. The next loan is our credit builder loan. This is for folks with poor or no credit who just need a little bit of money. Maybe you're dipping your toe into entrepreneurship or have an existing business and have a need for a small amount of money quickly. A tree root grew through a pipe. You need to get some electrical work done, something like that. Generally, these are going to be a 2-year term. They're going to be 9%. And while collateral is not required, it is encouraged. Other than that, it's the same as all of our other loans, except for much lower application and closing costs. Before I move on from the loans, are there any questions about the loans specifically? Okay. So, before I end my presentation, I like to always say there's 5 things to remember when you're applying for business capital. Number one, keep your job. We want to see money coming in. As you're growing your business, you're going to want to see money coming in as well. Number two, you need an accountant. Honestly, even if you are an accountant, you're going to be in the weeds as you're growing your business. You don't want to miss tax deadlines and get out of good standing with the state. That makes you ineligible for a lot of our services and services of a lot of other nonprofits. You're already doing number three, ask for help. Take advantage of all the free resources available to you. There's nowhere better than the state of Maryland for that. You want to keep your money in the bank. If you're applying for a business loan, it's not the time to be purchasing a house or a car or opening up credit cards. Of course, unless you have to, there are life circumstances. And then, no business is an island. Be part of your community because people go to small businesses because they are part of your community. So what you want to do is you want to join your local charities, join your Chamber of Commerce, your Rotary, your Main Street, sponsor the softball teams, things like that. And then here's a list of a lot of resources that coming back to number three. There's us. Most libraries have a business center. Most counties have an economic development organization. Almost all counties have a chamber of commerce. There's also the Black Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Greater Baltimore Chamber of Commerce. There's tons of them. They are all great. The Maryland Department of Commerce, if there are grants, they're going to know about them. The SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, that's an SBA run program, free services for small businesses, including getting mentors. Operation Hope does a lot of classes. The SBA does a lot of classes. They've got SCORE, the Senior Corps of Retired Executives, your local universities, and of course, your local business organizations. And then this is a list of some webinars we've got coming up. I'll be doing a funding webinar in a couple of weeks. We're going to have the Comptroller's Office and some SBA folks over in the next month or so as well. You can find these in the education tab of our website. And then with that, here's my contact information. And are there any questions? Nope. Well, I think of my best questions when these things end. So feel free to email me or contact our
Well,
main office, and then we'll get you in touch with a business counselor, get you a client intake form. Looks like you'll have a couple of minutes to have some lunch after Hall. So I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
I have a
Oh,
question. So
sure.
sorry. I was trying to type it in, but I wasn't fast enough. So the lenders, will they want to see a certain amount of money in the business account for some months to for sustainability, or that doesn't really matter if you're
So
just starting
yeah,
a business?
certainly not required, especially as we're working with startups where they wouldn't have any of that in there. But it's definitely, if you can show that, it's a positive on the application. But for CDFIs like us, it's not required.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you very much.
You are welcome. Any other questions? Nope. All righty. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you again in another training soon. And we look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you for coming.
You as well. Thank you. Bye.